Welcome, Emily, to probably one of my first curtain call conversations. That is a brand new channel that I am launching, and you will be, I think, my very first interviewee. So I'm really honoured that you're here with me today.
Well, thank you. I'm honored that I get to be your first. This is exciting because this is my first tour interview as well. So it's double
Oh,
firsts for us today.
that's brilliant. So just to introduce you, you are Emily Beecher, co-creative director, writer, producer, performer, story consultant, and proud single mama to Maisie, and the creator and founding mother of the Good Enough Mums Club. I mean, I was really lucky to see this in the workshop at Birmingham Hippodrome with three of my mummy friends, and we absolutely loved it. So the chance that it's back on stage as a full production, I really cannot wait to see it. What can we expect from the full production?
You know what? This is so exciting, and it's funny. Our directors, we've got a job share on the directors with two directors, and they were like, "So, what is the production like?" And I was like, "Oh, I've been working on this for 10 years. I've never quite imagined that stage." And I
Yeah.
think that's what's so exciting right now. We go into rehearsals in like 10 days. Um, I think you can expect lots of laughs. I think you can expect some tears. I think you can expect like buggyography and like seeing mums' lives in all their messy glory on stage. I think we're really working, I've seen the set design now, and I'm talking to the team and I'm seeing costume and all of those things come together. And it's about, for me, the actual representation of real women's lives as mothers
Yeah.
on our stages, which we don't get enough women on our stages, full stop. But we
Yeah.
definitely don't, and especially in musicals, get enough mums and the sort of reality of motherhood, which isn't very glossy all of the time. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping that you're gonna see come October.
Yeah, I mean, what I took from the sort of the workshop version was, as you said, plenty of laughs and plenty of tears, because I mean, your background to this, if you can explain the reasoning why you sort of wrote the musical in the first place.
Yeah, of course. It's so interesting. So I had really terrible postnatal depression when Maisie was born. And I didn't know I had it. And they reckon it came on at some point between her being sort of 3 to 5 months. So not immediately, like a lot of people get it
Mhm.
immediately. I didn't. Um, I wasn't diagnosed till she was 10 months. And then I was just really undertreated. And I had the psychotic break. So I had psychosis when she was 13 months old.
Right.
And I was so happy that I had this diagnosis. I was so happy that there was actually something wrong with me. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm not just a terrible, like, I'm not supposed to feel like this, I think is what it was. That I told everyone.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, like, I'm not shit. This is sorry. I'm not terrible. This is a thing. And what I found was all of these women who I thought had it together, were like rocking motherhood, had all of these things that they confessed to me. And that was happening at the same time that I was in some really intensive, therapy. And my therapist said, why don't you try writing your thoughts down? Just because there was so much and there were so many, and I'd had so many intrusive thoughts. Why don't we write it down? And as I started writing it down, I knew that it was something.
Mhm.
And what I wanted to do is I wanted to honor all of the women who told me things, and I say confessed because I think there's an element of shame often in those
Mhm.
things. So even though they're not shameful things, we feel like they are.
Yeah.
And I wanted to honor that, but I also wanted to talk about the things that we don't talk about out loud. And that is really how the Good Enough Mums Club was born.
Yeah, I mean it's so important, as you say. We don't see it on probably a stage, really. So to bring it into a musical form as well, I mean it was so lovely. I mean, I only saw the workshop and I absolutely loved it because I thought the cast that you got at that point were fantastic as well, and just some great songs as well. Just bringing all of that information about, we sat there as mums going, oh yeah, we're not the only one that had to deal with that or something, something similar to do. I mean, mine's 17 now, so she's very independent. But at that early stage of motherhood, it's hard. I mean, you feel as though you're out there on your own.
It
I,
does. It feels like it's all consuming, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that changes, and you're consumed with different concerns as they get older. You know, Maisie turned 14 2 weeks ago.
Hmm.
Um, and she was 2 when we started, like when I first started writing stuff down. And, you know, we've been working on the show as a production for 10 years.
Yeah,
But it is all consuming. And it's, especially with social media and everything else, it's really easy to compare the best bits of someone's life with your worst bits.
yeah,
And I think it's also easy not to feel like you have people you can be honest with.
yeah,
And I think that's one of the things for me is that I hope that people can find that. And we know in the past that people have found that they've been able to have really honest conversations with their mates, or some of their mates,
yeah,
afterwards.
yeah.
But it is all consuming in the early days, and you're so worried you're screwing them up. Like, am I doing it wrong? Is there a right
Yeah.
way to do it? Like, there's no manual,
Well,
there's no,
exactly.
lots of people have opinions that they want to give you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was nice to, share that show with my fellow moms, that we all came away and were kind of like, I really hope this musical has legs, because it was just brilliant. And when it popped up in my inbox that it was coming back in a full show form, especially at my local theatre, so I shall be there. I mean, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. You've just been to the Edinburgh Fringe as well, haven't you? Was that with, I don't think it was with this show, but with a different show.
Yeah, so it's been a funny year for me because I've written 2 shows in my life, 10 years apart. And both have gone up in that, well, I guess 6 years apart, but both have gone
Wow.
up in the same at the same
Wow.
point. So all of those things, when people are like, oh, you have so much work, I'm like, no, these are just the 2 things I've done in the last 10 years, and they've both arrived at the same time.
Yeah.
So yes, we were up at the Ed Fringe. I took my daughter, my dog, and my stand mixer because I'm a stress baker. So I was like, I'm going to take this up with me. And I had my show Summer Camp for Broken People up there for the whole month. So
What's that is that a musical? Is it what
it's
that's
not a musical, it's a one-woman show, and
okay.
it's actually, interestingly, it's got ties in with motherhood. A lot of it looks at sort of like, so the show itself is about mental health, sexual assault, like therapy and recovery, but all from the perspective of someone in their 40s who is having to do that journey with a child. And what it's like to sort of exist in the world as a woman, knowing what we know whilst also raising girls.
Yeah.
And so that's a very hard-hitting show. It's probably harder to watch than it is for me to do. I think it's quite empowering for me as a former writer. But I think it does similar things that Good Enough does. I think that it layers that humor with emotion, which I think, look, humor's our way out, isn't it? Like, we all need that in the worst, darkest days to have those moments. So but yeah, that was a bucket list thing for me, so I was really excited.
How did you find the Edinburgh Fringe atmosphere? I mean, I didn't get a chance to go this year, but I really want to go next year. But from what I've read, it's kind of a bit full on and a bit sort of everything all at once. How did you find it?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything all at once, all the time. It's a very good way of summing it up.
Yeah.
It's a roller coaster, and I think I'm going to need some time to sort of think about it. I think what I do say to people, and obviously most people that go up to the Fringe are younger, they're in their like late 20s, early 30s, but I've decided it's basically like childbirth, in that everybody tells you a horror story or they tell you you'll be fine. Both are true, neither are true. Everybody's experience is completely different. But when you're in it, at some points you're like, no, I got this, we're good, like I got this. And other points you're like, that's it, kill me now, I'm done. I will never finish this, like just put me out of my misery.
Yeah.
And then as it comes to an end, you go, oh, we could do that again, couldn't we?
Yeah. Well, you've already
I
got
was literally
aspirations.
heading to the train and I was like, no, this has been really hard. What are you thinking? I was like, I let the estate agents know we'll take that house again next year. I was like, no, Emily, what?
Did your daughter enjoy it?
You know what she did? I think we both fell in love with Edinburgh. Like, I've always loved Edinburgh. It's always been one of those cities, but I think living there for a month. So I think it's jumped to the top of her uni list. She's starting GCSEs this year. So we're starting those thought processes.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that might be a good idea. Maybe you should do that. So
did you both get to see lots of other shows whilst you were there?
Yeah, we got to see shows, but we also got to do fun things, like, because it was her birthday while we were up there. So we got to go to the beach and hang out on the beach, and I did Arthur's Seat, and just like lots of like, you have to balance life and shows and everything else. And when you're doing a show almost every single day, it's like, okay, like how much time do I have? But I think for me, having Maisie there was magical because it also meant that I wasn't out every night. I wasn't like,
Yeah.
what's the youngsters? They were out all the time. I don't know how they did it. I don't know how their livers
I
are still.
remember that well. Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, oh, I have to feed someone. She was like, you're supposed to feed me. I'm like, I should probably come home and feed you then. That's probably a
Yeah,
good idea.
they're good like that. They just appear for food and sleep when they get older. But what does she think of the Good Enough Mums Club? I mean, she's at that age now where, she understands what the show's about.
Yeah,
Primarily her, I guess.
yeah, and it's a lot about us, I
Yeah.
suppose. I've been on my own with Maisie since she was 2, so
Right.
I think there's lots of us in the show, which she loves. I think also it's a very strange thing when you can actually like feel your child really proud of you, and I know that she's really proud because I don't hide a lot from her. We have quite an open relationship. So she knows how difficult it's been to get here. We pitched the show for 5 years and no one was really interested. No, everyone told me that like moms don't go to the theater unless they're taking their kids. And I was like, how many shows do you have for them where they might see themselves? And they were like, well, that's not the point. I'm like,
Yeah.
so she's seen those times where I thought we were getting somewhere and then we didn't get something at the end. There was another time a few years ago, we were part of a well-being project and we were down to the sort of final 4 and then we didn't get the funding. And, so she's seen that sort of like soul-crushing devastation.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she's also, heard the songs, and there's certain things as she's gotten older and we've written more music, there's certain things that phrases she said or things like that I've picked out that are embedded in the show. And I think she really likes that there's 3 of us that have worked on the show for 10 years, Sarah Shee, Jade Samuels, and myself. And there's so much of us and our kids woven into that it's kind of nice. Now they're getting older. They're not those babies. Like at one point we all had kids under 4 and now they're like all teenagers and in secondary school, and you're kind of like, oh, I'm really glad we had those little moments that we could weave into the show that kind of keeps them with us as we go through.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, they're a joy. I mean, they're just a joy anyway, aren't they, kids? I mean, it's so wonderful, and to have all those experiences that she can see you, doing so well with it. I mean, I'm really pleased for you that it's all happened. I mean, you've got an autumn tour happening. It's kicking off at the Birmingham Hippodrome on the 25th of October. Then you're off to Chester, to Norwich, to Lincoln, to Southampton and Salford. How will you find the touring life?
You know what? I'm really lucky because I don't have to be out with them all the time.
Oh,
so
okay.
I get to go for the fun bits. But we've toured before. So when we did the concert tour, the workshop, I mean, what's exciting for me is like the world premiere of the show as a production is going to be in Birmingham. And that's really special because Jade's from Birmingham, but also the Hippodrome have been such big supporters of ours, and Chris Sudworth there has been amazing.
Yes.
The tour is interesting because touring is not life friendly for anyone. And I think for parents, it's even more so. So we always have gone out of our way to do things differently. And we are definitely doing that. One of our actresses has a 4-month-old.
Oh, wow.
And he's coming on tour with us, but her mother-in-law is coming on tour with us as well. So we've got all of these different setups depending on what people need. So I actually think it's going to be a phenomenal adventure for all of us. And we've got a job share where our production manager and our stage manager are our couple, and they have a little boy who I think is going to be like 14 months.
Oh, wow.
I know I'm lying. He's going to be even older than that. And so they're doing this sort of job share on the tour, so Rory can come on tour with us as well. And like that for me is what's special about the tour, is because it's hard being a parent in any job. It's especially hard being a parent in the performing arts. And so we're kind of going, what would make it easier? Let's try stuff and see what happens.
I mean, it's testament to you and the show that they want to do that and bring their really small kids along with them. I mean, that's great, and it's just a great ethos to have throughout a company, because you become a family, don't you? And it's so lovely. Yeah.
I get cuddles. And
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't get those like little baby cuddles anymore. So
No,
I'm like,
exactly.
someone needs baby holding. Oh, okay, I'll do that. It's great.
So you miss out on all that when they get to a certain age. But I think the going back to the premise of the Good Enough Mums Club, I mean, you've been to different locations all across the country to get your stories from mothers. How have you found that? I mean, are people willing to be so open with you about their struggles and joys, on the other flip
Yeah.
side?
It's, you know what? It's really beautiful. And I'm always amazed that people trust us with as much as they trust us with. And
Yeah.
sometimes their worst days, and sometimes things they've not said out loud to anyone else. And I was trying to work out how many sort of people I've spoken to over the sort of course of the show's life. And I think it's got to be probably like 350,
Wow.
450 mums over a 10-year period. It kind
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
builds up. And that's been everything from, we spent the most amazing time at this mosque in Birmingham.
Yeah.
We spent time with mums whose school is like literally next to Grenfell. We've
Right.
also met mums in the city in really high powered jobs, and whose kids are in lots of very different situations, and how do you navigate that? And every single conversation we have, I am so grateful for, and I feel so fortunate that people are willing to talk to me about their experiences. And I'm always love, everybody's motherhood experience is totally individual to them, but the things that cross through for all of us,
Yeah.
and the worries that we have, and the stresses and the things that we worry about, or loss, or how do we deal with situations, and who does that make us as people, not just as mothers at the end of the day. So I love it. I love it when people come and talk to me after the show. I just feel hugely grateful that so many women have entrusted me with little threads of their life. And I hope that, if and when they see the show, that they'll be able to see that we've kept it and hopefully done them justice in sharing that, so that other people feel less alone from what they've told me.
Yeah, and you become, at the end of the show, a member of the Good Enough Moms Club, which is lovely.
You do become a member of the Good Enough Moms Club, and we're hoping, I'm just got a little plan now, because I feel like every club should have a badge. So
Oh, yes, we
I'm
like
looking
a
at
badge.
potentially making very clear that we are card carrying members of the
Yeah,
Good Enough Moms Club at the end.
absolutely. I mean, where do you I mean, you've written two shows, one a musical, which is obviously my passion. Where do you start by, writing music, and do you write the music and the lyrics?
I write the lyrics,
Yeah.
and then we've had Chris Passy, but we have Verity Quaid on music at the moment, and Verity's arranged all the music for us. And then we have Tony Award winning orchestrator Sarah Travis has done all of
Wow.
our orchestrations.
Yeah.
And we're going to have, for the first time, the band on this tour are keys, drums, cello, and bass, both stand up and electric, which for me, having strings in there, I've been waiting for this moment.
Yeah.
But I've always started, it's funny, I think I'm a story person. So I want to know like what the heart of the story is. And I can't write until I know what that is.
Yeah.
And then often I don't write linearly. So I write bits and
Okay.
pieces. I really knew, for example, I wanted to kick the show off with a song about pregnancy and becoming a mother. And you've heard 9 months, and
Yeah.
that to me is the prologue to the show. And I kind of knew exactly what I wanted with that, so we just started playing with it. And then other times there's a song, Price to be Paid. It's really strange, I went to bed with a really bad headache, and what had happened is we'd done a workshop and spoke to this woman who was a journalist, and we were talking about things you miss, essentially, about your pretrial. And she said, I really struggle. At one point I had a moment where I realized that my passport was still in my desk at my office, and I realized that there would never be another time that I would go to the office at 2 a.m. to get my passport and head out to a war zone, because I couldn't do that to myself or my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I read all these books and I prepared myself, but I didn't know that would be the price that I paid. And that sentence stuck in my head. And I went home and I had this terrible headache for a few days and I couldn't get it. And I went to sleep one night, woke up in the middle of the night, wrote all of this stuff out, woke up in the morning, no headache, and sent
Oh,
the
wow.
words off to Chris, and that was the song. I mean,
Yeah.
we've tweaked it and we've reworked little bits of it, but it's essentially just whatever my brain dumped in that moment.
Wow.
So it's always an interesting process, but for me, story has to be at the heart
Yeah.
of
So
everything.
I guess you sort of, as you say, when you listen to the stories, there's always little snippets of wordings that people may use that just stick, I guess, stick in your mind, and then you can branch off from that, I guess. I mean, I'd love to be so creative that I could write a song, but I'm not. I'm just really interested about how it happens for you. I mean, it's a wonderful, wonderful gift to be able to do that. I mean,
Oh,
you're extremely creative. I mean, I was reading your bio, and you were the story consultant. It says here on the viral hit, which was the Walt Disney Company's first ever Christmas ad.
yes, an amazing friend of mine, Angela Afanita, is the creative director at Disney, and she was sort of like, I'm struggling with some of the storytelling. We're pitching this, like, do you want to come on board? So I got to work with this amazing team as we kind of like, what's the structure of the story? And again, as much as story is the heart of it, for me, structure is the backbone. And as I've learned more about storytelling and structure and why we tell story, like why stories work in certain ways or they don't work,
Mhm.
I was really fortunate to go in there, and it was a very personal story. Ange is Filipino, Italian, and grew up here first generation. And it's a Filipino story, and it was
Yeah.
really important to her. So I was really honored that she asked me to come and be on part of the team to just kind of look at how we structured that. I
Yeah.
was meaner. They didn't let me be as mean as I would have. There was a moment where I was like, and then you need to kill the dog. And they were like, Emily,
Oh,
the dog.
don't say that.
Fine.
Oh no, as
But
a
yeah.
dog owner, I don't
I
endorse
know. I
that.
had to show sadness, and I was like, "That will kill people." They were like, "We're not going that far."
No, that's not very
Like
Disney,
you're
is
Disney,
it
you kill
really?
parents at the beginning of every film. What are you telling me? I can't kill the dog. But
No,
anyways,
absolutely, absolutely not. It's been an absolute pleasure and a joy to talk to you, Emily. As I said, I'm so excited that this show is getting the recognition that it deserves, because I absolutely adored it, and I will be there at the Birmingham Hippodrome to see how it's evolved in the last couple of years. As I said, it kicks off on the 25th of October. All details for the tour are on goodenoughmomsclub.com. Thank you so much for your time today.
thank you so much for having me. It's been such a delight, and I can't wait to see you in Birmingham.
Yes, I shall see you there.